Mr. and Mrs. Roberts, her cheeks were glowing red as she thought that maybe Austin placed her undergarments in the closet. But that was okay, right? After all, they are married. Yeah, it's normal. Married couples see each other naked, but that isn't going to happen in their relationship, right? She quickly changed her clothes and got dressed in black short and oversized black sweater that reached her mid-thighs. A faint aroma of food distracted her from her embarrassment. Her stomach glowed just in the moment. She glanced at the digital clock that was placed on the bedside table and saw that it was barely 7 in the evening. It's too early to have dinner, but she haven't ate anything. And so she walked out of the room, following the scent of food. She walked down through the wooden staircase, her hand resting on the railing of the stairs. The whole bungalow was designed, giving it is a rustic yet modern look. It was beautiful. As she walked down, she saw something that she never imagined seeing. Austin was cooking. A white apron was tied on his perfectly toned body. He was stirring something in the fry pan also. He had changed himself into the white loose t-shirt that hung slowly on his body, exposing his collarbone. He was wearing gray sweatpants and his black hair fell on his forehead, wet from the shower. Hazel assumed, how can someone look this handsome all the time? He looked up from the fry pan and was momentarily stirred, eyes wide and mouth slightly ajar. Oh, you are here. I was just about to call you down once the dinner was ready, he explained with a charming smile, adoring his face. Yeah, I'm hungry, and the smell of food wasn't helping, Hazel replied truthfully, on which Austin chuckled. She hasn't heard him laugh. It will be ready in few minutes, Mrs. Roberts, he said, voice light as if he was tasting Hazel. Glad to know, Mr. Roberts, Hazel replied, smiling at him, facing him back. Hazel sat on the kitchen stool and Austin continued doing his work. Hazel has to admit that the way he works around the kitchen, it feels as if he used to the cooking a lot. Does he cook for himself all the time? After somewhat 10 minutes, a plate of chicken stir fry, Austin sat beside her on another stool with a plate of himself. They are in silence. The stir fry was delicious. Austin is a good cook, Hazel concluded. The silence wasn't awkward right now. It was calming in some way. Austin was the first one to finish his dinner, and so he stood up and gathered his plate and placed in the sink. He was about to wash it when Hazel stopped him. Let it be, I'll do the dishes, she said as she toasted and walked towards the sink, placing her plate as well. You sure? Austin asked him with a raised brow. Yeah, you did the cooking, I'll do the washing, Hazel said, and Austin nodded. Okay, then good night, he said and offered a smile to her. Good night, Hazel greeted back with a smile of her own. She watched as Austin walked upstairs. She sighed and began doing the washing. Once she was done, she decided to walk around the bungalow. She has to get used to this house after all. She will be leaving here. She gave herself a little tour around the house. This time, she was freely roaming around. Earlier with Austin, it was awkward. There was a drawing room, a dining hall, a small dance studio with one wall of ceiling-to-floor mirror, indoor swimming pool, a small library, a study room, a game room. She was mesmerized by the library room. It was exactly big, but it wasn't small either. It was beautiful. There were two chairs placed in front of the fireplace. Books had always been her friends. When she wanted to escape from reality, books were her only safe place. She wonders that if Austin likes to read. The library was filled with many complex textbooks. Books are about law and engineering as well as about technology. What caught her attention were there were fiction books too. A lot of fiction books. In fact, Austin doesn't hit as a person who's interested in the fictional world. This place is arranged by his grandparents, so Hazel didn't really know about Austin's preferences. She left the library because she's too tired to read right now, but she made a mental note to visit this place tomorrow. She can't wait to waste her hours here. She walked downstairs. A small door in the living room caught her attention. It was small, height roughly half of the length of the standard doors. What is it? She walked toward the door and asked down to open the door. What are you doing? A sudden voice made her jump in her place, and she turned around immediately, only to find Austin standing behind her, arms folded on his chest. She placed her hand on her heart. "You scared me," she accused him as she tried to breathe out properly. "What are you doing here?" he asked again, one brow raised. His previously wet hair was now dry and mist on his head. "I was just looking around," Hazel said as she gulped, voice low as if she has been caught by a cop while doing robbery. That was how intense Austin's gaze was. "I just found this door and thought that I should check it." "Well, you shouldn't," Austin said, voice dry. Hazel furrowed her brows at that. "It's the door to the basement. You want to look around the basement when it's night? I am not even sure whether there are lights down here," he commented. "Oh, yeah, oh now, go to sleep. Tomorrow we have to go to your old house to gather your belongings before I go to work," he said, and watched as Hazel nodded and said goodnight for the second time. He stood there, rooted to his place, until he saw Hazel walk in her room and closing the door behind her. Next morning, Austin drove Hazel back to her old house. He was wearing a white t-shirt with black pants and black blazer. His straight hair was slight back, exposing his forehead. As always, he was wearing a black mask to hide his face from the pants that can be luring around. On the other hand, Hazel was dressed in a yellow dress that goes beyond her kneecap. Her black hair were tied up in a ponytail and few strands were lip-gloss. The sun was too bright when they stepped out of the car. Austin placed black glasses to shade his eyes. Hazel practically scolded herself for not getting sunglasses for herself too. Once they entered the Hazel's small space, she felt self-conscious. Her place was small and cheap. It felt weird to have Austin there. As for Austin, he was glancing everywhere in the room. He took off his glasses. There wasn't much to begin with. A small tacky sofa and a coffee table in front of it. Few Polaroids hanging by a steering on a wall. He walked towards the Polaroid. In one Polaroid, Hazel was taking a selfie with few kids. She looked younger in these photos. Maybe she was in her teenage. The kids must be from orphanage, he assumed. "Oh, I will pack my things quickly," she said as she walked into the room quickly. Austin just examined the entire room without saying a word. After some time, he walked into the room where Hazel was packing in her small suitcase. She was staring on the floor in front of her closet. "Need any help?" he asked as he walked farther and saw that Hazel was placing frames into the back. Austin immediately started to remove the frames. "You don't have to. It's almost done anyway," Hazel said. "It will be faster if I help you," Austin said. "Okay," Hazel said. Hazel instructed him to pack her notebooks that were placed in her study's table. Austin did as he was told. He carefully packed all the necessary belongings in the box that Hazel gave him. He opened the drawer of the table and something caught his gaze. There was a photo. He glanced back at Hazel to see that the girl wasn't looking at him. He quickly placed onto the photo under the inner pocket of his blazer. After 20 minutes, they both were done with packing. It was just one bag and one box, nothing else. She didn't have much to begin with. Austin grabbed the box and Hazel took the bag in her hands. She looked around her small space, getting sentimental for some reason. The apartment wasn't much, but yet it was her home. Sure, she will be back here after the contract is ended, but that doesn't mean that she won't miss this place. They walked out side by side. Austin walked towards the car first and let Hazel close the door. He opened the car trunk and placed the box there soon. Hazel followed by. He took the bag from her hands and placed in the trunk as well. They drove back to the bungalow. I will be home late today. I have shooting schedule, so don't wait for me for dinner. If you want to cook, the groceries are placed in the fridge. And if you want to order takeout, there are a number on the fridge. Order something for you," he said. "I will also transfer the money in your bank account today," he added as he placed the box in the bag in Hazel's room, leaving it on the floor. She nodded at acknowledgement. With that said, he nodded at Hazel and turned around to leave the room. Hazel sighed as she looked around the room. Her Polaroids will look good above the headboard of her bed. There should be nails driven in the wall for all the photo frames she has. The wood asked Austin later for help. She took the box and placed it under the bed and began to unpack her bag. She then began to place the clothes in the wardrobe, which was already full with expensive clothing. Ever since Austin told her not to go to the basement, her curiosity has grown even more. Basements are supposed to be like storeroom. There shouldn't be anything special, but the way Austin harshly stopped her from going down there said it differently. After she was done with unpacking, she walked down towards the living room. Austin isn't at home, so he won't know. And what he won't know won't cause any trouble, right? She walked toward the door of the basement, but to her surprise, the door was locked with a big heavy lock. She groaned, "What the hell in the basement?" "She is your sister-in-law. The new day brings new start," Hazel reminded herself as soon as she woke up in the morning. Austin came late last night. Just as he said, he is an actor and their schedule can be extremely busy. She walked down, dressed in an expensive pair of tight-fitted gray pants and white blouse that was tucked in into the pants. Her long black hair were placed in tight ponytail and her cotton flakes were fanning her face. She had applied very minimal makeup. Today, she's going to attend few interviews, trying her luck, though she is already married to a billionaire. But that does mean that she can't take her career for granted. She had studied for years to achieve her graduation. She just can't let it go. She stepped downstairs and looked around. It was barely 9 in the morning, but Austin wasn't around. Instead, there was a pot of what Hazel thought was breakfast. She removed the lid and yes, it was food. Austin is completely a husband material. Smiling to herself, she sat on the kitchen stool and silently ate the food. Once done, she washed the plate and made her way out of the bungalow. To her surprise, a driver was ready for her. "Good morning, Mrs. Roberts." The guard greeted with a slight bow. "Good morning," she greeted back. "Mr. Eleo told me to be at your service all the time, ma'am," he explained when he saw how confused Hazel looked. Realization flooded on her face. "That's very kind of him," she said and offered him a smile who smiled back. Before opening the back door for Hazel, she sat down on the plush seat of the car and placed her handbag on her lap. The driver asked for the address and she gave the directions. Once the driver got the address right, Hazel let herself gaze out of the window. Today was the big day for her. She has never attended any interview before, but oral exams were always scary in the college. She would open but blurred outward things at word times. She can just pray that today wasn't that case. The driver stopped the car by a tall building and Hazel stepped down. She hoped that she won't embarrass herself. And the case wasn't the same. She attended 3 interviews and regardless to say, she thought that she did good. Obviously, she could have done better, but the interviews weren't bad. When she finally reached home, she just wanted to lie down on her bed. Austin wouldn't be at home and being alone gave her the opportunity to just laze around. The driver finally pulled the car in front of bungalow again. Hazel immediately stepped out and was ready to go into the house. "Who are you?" she heard a man's voice. She gazed upward and saw a man standing just outside the gate, wearing black t-shirt and black jeans. He had his arms folded in his chest and was glaring at Hazel. He looked familiar though his features were familiar. His hair were dark and his eyes were intense. Hazel observed that his upper lip was thin as compared to his lower lip. What should she say? That she is Mrs. Roberts? But Austin told her to not speak about it to anyone. "She is your sister-in-law," a hoarse voice said, and Hazel immediately turned around and saw Austin standing behind her. He just arrived, and Hazel can't be any more thankful. I had told you about her already. Remember, Austin's voice holding a warning. But Hazel brushed it away. Hazel, this is my little brother. Edward, this is my wife. He said and hugged Hazel by her waist. Edward gazed at Hazel top to bottom, scanning her. Hazel squirmed in his gaze. Welcome to the family, Hazel. Edward said, and Hazel snapped to look at his eyes. The man gave her forced smile. Thank you, she replied. Let's go in, Austin said, and with his hand still on his Hazel waist, he opened the gate and walked on all them to the house. Grandpa Choice is always reliable. He knows what is good, Edward commented as soon as he stepped in the living room. Austin turned to give him a smirk. He has been in this field more than us, Austin commented. Sweetheart, why don't you make coffee for all of us? He said while looking at Hazel. Of course, I'll be right back, she said, and she detached herself from her husband and made her way towards the kitchen, eager to be away from the Roberts brother. Austin watched her retreating sight as he turned and walked towards the sofa. Edward sat on the sofa too. You came earlier than expected, Austin said. Edward shrugged. I am known for doing my work fastest. It's my style and you know it, Edward said with an arrogant smirk on his face. Austin chuckled. As she brothers shuttled for God knows what, Hazel was struggling for everything. She didn't know where the appliances are or where are the ingredients, and she certainly don't want to humiliate herself by calling her fake husband and asking for his help, at least not in front of Edward. By opening each of the kitchen cabinets, she began to search for the ingredients. Luckily, she found the coffee in the top of cabinet. She opened the lower cabinet inside when he saw the coffee maker. She took it out and placed it on the counter. She added the water and placed the filters she thankfully found in the drawer. She then added the coffee, and now she has to wait. As the coffee brewed, Hazel picked her head towards the hall and saw that Austin and Edward were talking with very serious expression. When brothers are supposed to be playful, they didn't even hug each other or at least exchange congratulatory. Hazel never had siblings, so she didn't exactly know how they are supposed to work. Struggling to herself, she poured the coffee into the 3 cups and made her way out. As Hazel placed the tray on the coffee table, she immediately sat beside Austin, who instantly pulled her by her waist. Edward eyes their moment with neutral pace. He took one of the cup from the tray and took a sip quietly. So Hazel, he called, are you still in college? He asked. Looking directly at Hazel, Austin raised his brow at him. No, I recently graduated, she informed him. I just came back today. After giving interviews, both males snapped at that. What? Austin asked. What? Why do you need to work? You know, right, that my salary can't pay enough for both of us. He asked, brows furrowed. Hazel frowned at him. Who is he to judge her decisions? And besides, this marriage is temporary. He has no right over here. I know, honey, but I didn't spend my years studying if I just had to play a trophy housewife to you, she said, voice as soft as honey, but Austin picked up the hidden bite in it. Interesting, Austin heard Edward say, but he paid him no heed. I am not judging you. I was just shocked, Austin commented and gave Hazel a soft smile. Oh, anyways, Edward said loudly to get the couple's attention back to him. Nathan was asking me about when are you giving a celebratory party, he said while looking at Austin. Hazel was once again confused about who this Nathan was. Austin rolled his eyes. That guy is always up for pre-bros, he said with a chuckle as he brought his cup of coffee to his mouth, taking a small sip. You know how busy I get usually, and now I have a new film to shoot. You are always busy, bro, but that is not an excuse. You marry once in your life, he said, and turned to look at Hazel. Unless something happened and you have to marry again. His mark and shiver ran down Hazel's spine. It It was if Edward was taunting her. That is not going to happen, right, sweetheart? Austin asked softly as he picked Hazel's forehead. Of course, love, Hazel replied, smiling sweetly at him. As for the celebration we can hold one this Sunday, what do you say? Austin asked as he turned his gaze back at Edward, who had cleaned it up, cleared his cup of coffee. I'll discuss it with him and let you know, Edward said. He glanced at his watch before looking back at him. I have to go. Nathan is waiting for me, he said and stood up. It was nice meeting you, sister-in-law, he commented with smirk. Likewise, Hazel replied while Austin was silently ordering Edward to leave. Once Edward was gone, Hazel turned to look Austin, who placed his empty cup of coffee down on the table. I had forgotten to ask you about Edward when you had discussed about him with your grandparents, she said. I had absolutely no idea who he was then I first saw him. Austin nodded. He is my brother, obviously, 2 years younger than me, and he currently works in Japan, managing Robert's branch there. He explained, and Hazel just nodded. Grandma called me to tell that Edward would be visiting us today, and so I drove directly here, he added. Oh, anyways, I have to go back to work. See you later. Yeah, bye. Austin nodded in acknowledgement, and Hazel watched as he walked out of the bungalow. Once he was gone, Hazel walked toward her room, changed into simple clothes, and made her way towards the library. She had been dying to read the fictional literature here. The book were so many and Hazel was confused. She grabbed one thick book that had a promising title and cover page. She made herself comfortable on the chair in front of the fireplace. Minutes passed into hours and Hazel didn't even know when she fell asleep. Didn't know about it. The night fell as didn't know Hazel about it. The night her eyes started that she actually opened her eyes, started that she actually slept through the afternoon. In the entire evening, she looked towards the window and saw the moon shining beautifully in the sky. How long was she asleep exactly? So you are finally up. A boy stared her and she looked straight at her front, only to see her husband sitting on the chair opposite to her, reading a book. You sleep like a baby, he commented, still not looking at her. Hazel blinked multiple times, trying to get rid of the sleep from her eyes. She still felt tired. Yeah, I was more tired than I thought, she said, and Austin finally looked at her. He was wearing a white sweater and dark brown sweatpants. His hairs were once again wet, just like the night of their wedding. He looked as beautiful as always, even though he was doing his bare minimum. How was your interview? He asked as he closed the book and placed it on his lap as he directly looked at Hazel. Well, I don't really know, but I think I did good, she replied honestly. She sat straight and something fell on her lap. Only then she noticed that Austin had placed a blanket on her while she was sleeping. She once again glanced at Austin, who looked away. I was waiting for you to get up so that we could order some food. I am too tired to cook anything tonight, and by seeing how you are right now, I assume that you two aren't in any mood for cooking. He commented, and Hazel nodded with a chuckle. She don't even want to get out from this chair. Is Korean food fine? Hazel nodded, rubbing her eyes. Bulgogi, he asked, voice as soft as ever. Anything is fine right now. I can even eat raw meat right now. I am that hungry, Hazel commented with a chuckle. Austin laughed too at that. I'll be downstairs, he said, and got on his feet. Okay, Hazel nodded. She watched as he left the room after placing the book back in the shelf. She yawned as she stood up from her chair and made her way towards her room. When Hazel got down when she was done, Austin was sitting on the sofa in front of the coffee table with few beer cans on the table. A Korean drama was playing on the table. He likes to watch dramas in his free time. She knew absolutely nothing about him. He was already eating bulgogi from a take-out box. He glanced up at Hazel and offered another take-out box to his wife. She took the box and sat beside him, keeping a safe distance between them. She placed her mobile phone on the space between them. She opened the box and was delighted with the delicious aroma. They were eating in silence. Hazel had always been a fan of Korean food, but never had tasted such amazing bulgogi in her life. Whose is money can't buy happiness. I think we should hold a celebration party this weekend. My friends are on my back for the celebration. Also, finishing the bulgogi, he placed the empty box on the table and grabbed the bear as he turned his full attention to Hazel. Okay, she replied, you haven't told anyone that his marriage is contracted except Daniel. I mean not even one of your friends, she asked, genuinely confused. If she had any friends, even one, she would have shared this news with him, that they are fake married because no matter how they both portray it, the whole situation is overwhelming. She always gets the urge to discuss it with someone. Nope, her husband replied, as he lowered the volume of the television. Why? She asked. It's better this way. The chance that our secret would be exposed is minimized this way. The less people know about this, it's only the better for us. I trust Daniel. He won't tell a soul about us. He explained, we have to act as if we are in love with each other, even in front of them. Hazel nodded. She should have sent this excuse coming from Austin. He is a private person, not even media knew any of his personal details. Daniel, the cat-like assistant, looks a look kind of person, so she understands what Austin is saying. But that if they ask us questions about our marriage, and what if we answer them differently? She asked. Meeting his parents was a different thing, but meeting his friends is something she is nervous about. Parents don't usually ask weird questions, friends do. They won't ask anything, and if they do, just say whatever comes in your mind. I am an actor, so I will put an act in front of them. My friends are basically idiots. They won't notice a thing, I can assure you that. Austin replied with a chuckle as if he remembered some kind of memory with a friend. Hazel nodded. Her phone began to vibrate, starting. Both of them with the intensity of vibration. Austin glanced at the phone and saw Jack's name displaying on the phone. He glanced at Hazel, who saw the name. A panic was clear on her face. She had gone visible pale. She quickly pressed the red button to cut the phone, her hand shaking a little. Good night, she muttered, starring on her own words. She quickly grabbed the phone in her hand while her other hand carried the take-out box. On her way, she threw the box in the trash can and hurried her step towards her room. Austin heard the door shut close behind her and narrowed his eyes in suspicion. The sun shined brightly in the sky as Austin stood by the sea, his hands as he stared at the ocean. His black silky hair was swinging with the air motion. He wore white sweater and black pants styled together with long black coat. I love you, sweetie. The woman cried as she fell on her knees beside Austin, who didn't even bother to look at her. How could you do that to me? I have loved you all my life. Why are you leaving me? Austin turned to look at her. Finally, the girl had short blonde hair and was wearing summer dress that was falling on her surface of the sun. You were the one who left me when I needed you the most. Remember when I was begging for you? He scoffed. I love her now. She trusted me, she cares for me, and more importantly, she loves me more than you ever did, she said. This was the last time that I am meeting you, Olivia. Don't call me again. This is my final goodbye. With that said, he began walking, leaving behind a weeping woman. Cat, the director shouted, and Austin stopped. The woman too stood up and smiled at Austin, who returned her smile. That was amazing, the director exclaimed as he pat Austin back. I think that it's enough for today. Let's call it a day. As Austin sighed and walked towards the vanity van, not even bothering to say bye to his co-workers. As he entered, Daniel was already in the van, scrolling the phone. He was wearing black t-shirt with black pants and black leather jacket. A gothic look. You look exhausted, Daniel commented without looking at Austin as he heard him sigh, for God knows how many times. You have no idea. I just want to go home and sleep through the entire day, he said as he grabbed his own clothes from the bag. How is your marriage life going? He exhausted by doing some workout at night? Daniel commented as a smile on his lips as he finally turned to look at him. Austin laughed while shaking his head. Daniel was one of a kind when work has to be done. He will act as a strict assistant, but when they are alone and doing nothing, he would be a friend that Austin needs dearly. As if I will ever do something like that to her. Austin scoffed. He removed the coat and threw it on the chair. Carelessly, the coat was itchy anyway. One can never know. You are living under same roof. Daniel Taste anyway. Yuko Star is trying to hook up with you, he informed, and Austin stopped in his action. I have lost count on how many times she asked me for your number. He rolled his eyes as he informed. Co-star, the girl who was weeping on the sea, her name was Copper. She was beautiful. Corby, she would be amazed in bed too. Austin smirked. Well, what can I say? She is hot. Wouldn't mind to bang her sometime? He commented as his eyes got dark, imagining the girl under him all work under his mercy made his pants feel tight. You are married, Roberts. Keep your junior in your pants, Daniel commented as she watched Austin disappear behind the curtain. They don't have to know about it, do they? He heard Austin speak. Are you kidding me? You are kidding me, right? You are kidding me, right? Sounding horrified as he stood from his seat and went towards the curtain. He really can't believe that his boss, aka friend, is actually thinking about hooking up with someone. Why would I joke about it then, Dan? He heard Austin say. Daniel sighed. This was Austin after all. He heard shuffle behind the curtain. You are married and your grandparents know about it. They will kill me before going after you, Daniel said, and watched as Austin walked back shirtless. He wore the shirt that he was holding in his hand and rolled his eyes at Daniel, who was glaring at him. Daniel may seem a tough guy, but that doesn't mean that he is not afraid of Austin's grandparents. After all, they are the one who appointed him as Austin's assistant, or you could say manager. It's not like my sex life will be broadcasted for the entire world to know, Austin commented, chuckling. Just give her my number. Austin, I don't think that it is a good idea. Who is the boss here? Austin asked as he raised his brow at her best friend. His voice suddenly stern and distant. Just do as you are told instead of acting as my grandpa, he muttered, sounding annoying as ever. Daniel watched her with a sigh as Austin stepped down from the van, slightly brushing her shoulder against his and went directly toward his Lamborghini, signing again Daniel to join him for a ride. Austin has always been like this, friendly a moment ago and sarcastic. Strict boss, another, Daniel sighed as he sat on the driver's seat while Austin sat beside him, busy on his phone. Night was young and the music was loud. Austin sat on one of the boats the club had as he waited for his so-called date. Has been months since was last got his dick wet. He needed some release as much as Hazel is hot and sexy as hell. Austin didn't want to use her as an advantage. Marrying her had a reason, and he swore that he will keep it as professional as he could. Amelia was hot, extremely hot. Actually, he would be lying if he said that. He didn't know about her flirty looks that would beg for attention. He noticed everything, but he wasn't the one to chase after women. Women chased him. He wore expensive black silk shirt with top few buttons open and a tie black jeans. Few gold chains adorned his neck, highlighting his defined collarbones. He nursed a wine glass in his hand as he looked around the club to find some good entertainment. There was nothing except horny people making out with each other. He rolled his eyes, pathetic. Daniel had informed him that Amalia would be coming to his club tonight, and so Austin was now waiting. Austin already had her number saved in his phone, and yet he didn't bother to give her a ring. He looked around the club. It was packed with youngsters grinding against each other like some horny bunnies. It's ridiculous. Austin has never been the type of person to dance in the crowd where there are hundreds of sweating bodies sweeping around him. Yes, he is total clean break. He liked this club mainly because there are mainly rich people who didn't really care about any celebrities around them. They are usually high to even care about who is around them. Hey, he heard a Hannah-like voice, called his name, and glanced up to look at the owner of the voice. His eyes immediately sparkled when he saw Amalia standing before him. Hi there, he greeted back. He scanned her hair from top to bottom. She was wearing a tight, extremely tight red dress that was showing too much of her cleavage. The dress barely covering her tongue ties. It was pathetic that it was so obviously that she had dressed to impress, and he is impressed. Were you waiting for me to for long? She asked as she sat beside him, few inches apart, her movements shy if she as innocent ten-age girl, and Austin again fought the urge to roll his eyes. Instead, he just smiled and inched closer to the desperate girl. I don't mind waiting for you, he replied, smirking at the girl, who was now blushing God. It is so obvious. She crossed her one leg over another, making her dress right up a little, exposing even more of her skin. To Austin, who followed her movement closely, eyes darkening. I thought that you didn't have any interest in me, she muttered, pointing slightly at him, who just wanted to roll his eyes at her. How could I not? Have you seen yourself in the mirror? He said as he placed one hand on her leg, caressing it softly. He raised his hand upwards a little, and Amalia bit her lips. She blushed again, eyes fluttering at the comment as she absorbed the compliment thrown at her. Eyes fluttering, chest rising and falling, and Austin can say that she is already excited. He leaned close to her face, his breath panning on her face. I could tell when I see a beautiful woman in you. Amalia are gorgeous beauty, he commented, and she seemed shocked for a moment before a shy smile appeared on her face. Shall we get going? Austin whispered against Amelia's ear, making her whimper in anticipation as a shiver ran down her spine. She had just came into the club, but Austin gave zero fucks anyway. Yes, she replied, shyly biting her red lips, and that was the only pass Austin needed at the moment. He stood from his seat and placed the glass of wine on the glass table as he stretched his hand in front of the girl, who took his hand without hesitation. He dragged her to the club, passing through the sweating bodies that were dancing on the dance floor. When she finally made their way out of the club, Austin was pushed against the wall of the building. Before he could react, a pair of Plus lips were open in his, devouring him a brushing kiss. Amelia was kissing him as if no tomorrow, hands roaming on his body frantically. It took a minute for Austin to know what was happening, but soon he began to kiss her too. The lust taking over her sense as he kissed her with hunger in his rational side was thrown away, that someone would see him. Instead, he kissed her, hands locked against other hair, struggling harshly. They were too busy eating each other's face that they didn't notice someone clicking their photos in the dark. Hangover in scandal. Austin woke up grunting as the warm sunlight caressed his face. He turned to the other side of the bed, trying to get some sleep back. Who the hell keeps their bedroom curtain open? His body is aching and all over from happy fatigue that was just an aftermath of the sex he had last night. He just wanted some release last night. Past few days have been hectic and B was stressed out. Amelia was a beautiful girl, even Austin admitted. But she certainly was too good in the bed. She was just aesthetically pleasing. Sex is a sex. Why do people want to talk in between that? Can't they just keep their mouths shut and enjoy the night? Austin often loves dirty talk in the bed, but the girl was down too. Sappy life story during sex type, and it was a major turn off for Austin. Apparently, Amelia was the one of those weird species who can't keep their mouth shut. Austin was so close to kick her out of her own house. Apparently, he took the longest time to have his climax last night, all thanks to the girl who can't stop talking. Last night was a complete disaster. Amelia took throughout the sec about how she wanted to film the movie they were filming with him, about how she would like to take this one night stand to possible successful relationship. Austin had rolled his eyes at that and immediately told her to shut the fuck up. He had just solely chased his orgasm. Maybe it was the alcohol in his system that made him stay the night with her. He was too tired to drive by himself and so ended up sleeping on the very bed. But the worst part was waking up on the same bed with a girl that turned him off so badly. Just when sleep had finally welcomed him home, his phone began to vibrate on the bedside table, startling him in the process. He groaned as he stretched his arm, knocking what he supposed was his wristwatch, and blindly searched for the phone. The phone which showed Grandpa's name blinking on the screen. Why would he call him his early? Without thinking much, Austin picked the phone and groggily brought the phone to his ear. "Hey, where the fuck are you?" he heard his grandfather bark at him, voice that never failed to give his shiver down his spine. "Austin," he used the swear word. "You are dumb. I am with a friend of mine. Why? What's the matter?" Austin asked, gulping as he sat straight on the bed, white doggy falling on his lap and his six-pack abs full displayed for the morning sunlight. He was still naked from his last night activities and the bed felt sticky. He really needs a long shower to clean himself up. "I want you to come back to your house this instant," he shouted before disconnecting the call. Austin gasped when she suddenly felt the phone go off. He looked at the phone. Did he just hang up on him? Austin sighed and immediately stood from the bed. His grandpa sounded angry and well, that wasn't good news. He was left in his naked glory as he began to search for his clothes that they had thrown carelessly around the room last night. "Where are you going?" he heard Amelia speak, and he turned to look at her. The said girl was sitting quietly on the bed, looking as beautiful as even, but she was a big no-no. She was holding David over her exposed chest. "Home," he replied, tone clip as pick up the pant beside the bed. He zipped them up before walking towards the sofa and picking the shirt. It was all crinkled, but he has no choice right now. "Can you stay a little longer? We can't have some more fun," she suggested, but Austin rolled his eyes at that. There was an evident pound on her lips. Well, that was annoying. Ignoring her, he began to button up his shirt. Look, you were good, but I don't want to do it with you again, so bye and have a good day." With that said, he picked up his mobile phone from the bedside table and immediately made his way out of the room. As he walked down towards his car, all he could think was why his grandpa called him. Didn't he know about that he did last night? He should probably check his phone. But just as he tried to switch on his phone, he was greeted with nothing but dark screen. His phone had decided a great time to be switched off. He sat in the car and closed the door. Securing himself with a security belt, he started the car engine. It was still early, and that's why the topic was extremely light. He can see few people jogging on the footpath. He knew that this grandpa-dad had asked him to go to their house, but Austin wasn't in any mood for that. It was a mellow morning, but Austin heard was aching like no tomorrow. He didn't drink much yesterday night. Probably 2 or 3 glasses of enough to give him hangover, and Amelia contributed into it greatly. She was like a cherry on top for his hangover. He finally reached the bungalow and he drove the car into the parking place. He He left the car and placed the car keys into his left pant pocket. Yawning, he made his way into the bungalow. All he wants to do is sleep for another 2 or 3 hours before facing his grandparents. They really be upset with him, and once they get upset, then he'll leave lows. Hangover in scandal. Austin woke are the sweetest, most humblest human being to Austin, but when they are angry, even devil sounds pretty good compared to them. He dialed the PIN code into the machine placed on the front door. He tried to make minimum noise. Hazel must still be sleeping. He didn't want to wake the girl up. He paused the door open, eager to go to sleep. It was his day off after all, but his luck had decided differently for him. Their night in living room stood, Leo and Georgia glaring at him. Leaning on the opposite wall was his secretary, aka his friend who I had warned you, look. Oh, hi Pa and Ma. What are you doing here this early? He asked, trying to play cool, but deep down he knew that he had done something wrong just by looking at Leo and Georgia. Where were you? Georgia asked, voice turning gaze intense as he stared at Austin as trying to grab his soul and pull it out. She was sitting beside Hazel on the sofa, holding her hand gently into her own. Gently, Austin noticed. Went to drink with friends last night, drank too much, and I fell asleep at their house. Austin lied confidently. He was standing in front of the door. He looked at Daniel, who was standing by the wall, hands pounded on the chest. He nodded at him. What is happening? Prince Georgia asked with a cocked eyebrow. Then what is this? She held her phone up for him, and Austin immediately walked close to her. He took the phone from her and began to read. Nation sweet boy caught in a hot make-out session with his co-star. Shout! Should we expect a new couple this year? Nation sweet boy is not so sweet after all. See the above pictures to know more. Austin gulped as he stared at all the photos posted on the internet. There were already many articles published. Some of them were declaring that they are in love with each other, which was obviously ridiculous. He glared at the picture that was floating on the internet. It was a perfect shot that was caught when he and Amalia were in the heated kiss. In the picture, Austin was pressed against the wall outside the club, whereas Amalia's hands were buried in his hair. Austin had his eyes closed as her too was kissing her with full passion. How did he didn't notice someone taking picture of them? He had always been careful in the club they visited was not in crowded area. What is this, Austin? I thought that you would change once you are married. Are the sweetest, most humblest human being to Austin, but when they are angry, even devil sounds pretty good compared to them. He dialed the PIN code into the machine placed on the front door. He tried to make minimum noise. Hazel must still be sleeping. He didn't want to wake the girl up. He paused the door open, eager to go to sleep. It was his day off after all, but his luck had decided differently for him. Their night in living room stood, Leo and Georgia glaring at him. Leaning on the opposite wall was his secretary, aka his friend who I had warned you, look. Oh, hi Pa and Ma. What are you doing here this early? He asked, trying to play cool, but deep down he knew that he had done something wrong just by looking at Leo and Georgia. Where were you? Georgia asked, voice turning gaze intense as he stared at Austin as trying to grab his soul and pull it out. She was sitting beside Hazel on the sofa, holding her hand gently into her own. Gently, Austin noticed. Went to drink with friends last night, drank too much, and I fell asleep at their house. Austin lied confidently. He was standing in front of the door. He looked at Daniel, who was standing by the wall, hands pounded on the chest. He nodded at him. What is happening? Prince Georgia asked with a cocked eyebrow. Then what is this? She held her phone up for him, and Austin immediately walked close to her. He took the phone from her and began to read. Nation sweet boy caught in a hot make-out session with his co-star. Shout! Should we expect a new couple this year? Nation sweet boy is not so sweet after all. See the above pictures to know more. Austin gulped as he stared at all the photos posted on the internet. There were already many articles published. Some of them were declaring that they are in love with each other. It was obviously ridiculous. He glared at the picture that was floating on the internet. It was a perfect shot that was caught when he and Amalia were in the heated kiss. In the picture, Austin was pressed against the wall outside the club, whereas Amalia's hands were buried in his hair. Austin had his eyes closed as her too was kissing her with all passion. How did he didn't notice someone taking picture of them? He had always been careful in the club they visited was not in crowded area. What is this, Austin? I thought that you would change once you are married. You are again doing adolescent act while your wife sleep alone at night. Your adolescent age is over. Learn to take the responsibility. Georgia shouted as she stood and walked towards her grandson until she was just inches apart. Why did you do that? Austin gulped and looked at Elio for help, who had his arm folded on just chest. He struggled as if he was enjoying the drama. It was hit of the moment reaction. Austin said quickly as he averted his gaze again on his grandma. Hazel and I had an argument last night. I know that what I did was extremely wrong, and for that, I am sorry. I regretted it as soon as I woke up. He lied, but half of it was true. He was regretting ever sleeping with Amalia. Hazel immediately looked at him, eyes nervous as she fidgeted with her fingers. Why does he have to drag her in between? Hazel thought. She was already enough in a mess, and now she had to act as her heartbroken wife. I was angry and went out to call myself up, and obviously did a huge mistake. I'm sorry. He tried to look as guilty as he could. After all, he is known actor. So, just because you had an argument doesn't mean that you can go around like this, Austin. You are a married man. Arguments happen in married life. Hazel is your responsibility, just like you are hers. How could you do this? Georgia shouted, her face getting red by each passing minute. I am sorry, Austin said, voice low and almost inaudible. He wasn't sorry at all. Hazel and he wasn't exclusive to begin with. He had really thought that this move with Amalia will be secret. Unfortunately, it wasn't. I am not the one you should say sorry to, and you should know that, Georgia said. Hazel deserves an apology. Look how pale she looked because of your tactics. Austin looked at Hazel and indeed. She looked pale, but he was sure that it wasn't because of him and Amalia, but rather because she was afraid and shaken by the presence of his grandparents. Austin just nodded and walked towards his wife. Hazel was looking at her lap. And when Austin knelt in front of her, only did she snap her head towards him. The boy looked as if he was on the verge of crying. Baby, Austin whispered, and Hazel looked away, trying her best to not to laugh, but she was also amazed by his acting. I'm sorry. He looked so apologetic that for a moment she thought that he really was sorry. She has to say something or else it would be awkward and a lot suspicious. Save that for someone who cares, she said and stood up from her place, starting everyone. Even Daniel seemed to be impressed by her acting. I don't want to see your face at the moment, she said, her eyes first and determined look on her beautiful face, saying that she marched her way up towards her room. She made sure to bang that door rather loudly for more effect. Austin looked down at his lap and then turned to look at his grandma as if he was about to cry again. You deserve it, she said with a roll of her eyes.